As education debate has zero value if we never discuss the implication of the topic outside of the academy. Third is that argument requires our framework to function. You can't conclude the affirmative is bad or reject the affirmative without comparing it to the alternative, and all their harms rely on something occurring outside of the debate. Advocating single-payer coach off 2016 people who experience the great experience of the most politically distant fractions who against the public single-payer support of secure tactics exploited by corporate interests of extorting on the single-payer indicate the love of the private health insurance is increasing the attempt to issue healthcare through the competing private insurance delusion. They indicate that more political education is the power matter because the self-serving determination can operate like self-fulfilling prophecy to lead public health advocates that conclude those who struggle for social justice are alone that they really are the means of communication control and production, and then sadly thus they will share the debate to assume their interests advocates may give up their fights and rewards which are accompanied to the boundaries and changes set by the corporate class. We need to improve our understanding the ECEDA of America says Medicare and continue to look for government and needed care that we need more struggle for single parent until the impossible becomes political, inevitable, and you should prioritize consequences when evaluating impacts about epistemology. Lower enlistment 2014, the decision to pursue or dismiss policy hedges on the existence of an alternative in which you have better outcomes and has a chance to become reality. Policy making always happens because of theoretical reasoning on justice and choice of not being restrained by any limits of visibility. Better policy option applies using the best of all possible cases. Your sake, whether a superior option is feasible is a matter of empirical investigation. The alternative does not influence health policy. Carson Russian 2017 policy that correspond to majority opinions advocates of policy to pursue engagement which they focus on their fitness consideration implicit in the individual level study framing issues. Framing effects of the product of the framing induced shifts can generate contaminations in public policies. Just to definitive overstatement. Such definitive statements that restate the influence of framing effects of policy actions to produce can direct attention to public attention towards certain consideration of their opinion may emphasize a different set of arguments and images of frames. Individual level research framing and not translate a system will change seems unlikely that the rhetorical sparring will alter at least beyond controversial topics such as healthcare. At least are unlikely to be convinced by framing of the nation consideration will not be sufficient with them. Over permutation to both permutation to the alternative and all none. Each of the two subparts of the alternative. They didn't read an alternative in the 1 and C, so it's not a complete argument. We obviously give you one error responses. They read a new 2 and C alternative. Being against bad is health. Being against health is bad. Some forms of medical is liberating, not oppressive. Their case, a reason to do it better, not abandoned. Shakespeare 2013, a theme is the deconstruction of disability and diagnosis, structuring disabilities with suggested diagnosis and suppression categories by a possible role in allocating services, including welfare, psychological, social support process needed eligibility to allocate support diagnosis are the means by which the individual gets a parking pension, welfare benefit, or pension. This can be liberating process. For being citizens can be liberating process which is felt takes a medical decision. The child with diagnosis may be oppressive. We need to better understanding of illness. It is not suggest diagnosis is inevitable or oppressive, or that we should ignore impairment. We should not throw the baby out of the bathwater. Their link is so broad, it's meaningless. For 2015, there is a strong tendency of biopolitical research to assume power always produces their influence. The subject people live within or such configuration of a variety of ways. There are very different forms of consent and resistant complexities need to be analyzed. The tendency to treat by power as if it were everywhere is confederation. The theory concepts demanding to be used to guarantee their own truth. If you look for biopower, you will find it. Everything is biopoliticalized very little. If there is anything that is not biopolitical, if all of human life hasn't and always been their concept of over medicalization necessarily relies on a narrow conception of the goals of medicine that sidelines mental health and entrenches concepts of normal health. That's not medicalization depends on the notion that medicine is proper goals. Only one needs an error for these goals to get traction from medicalization. To treat the valuable distinction depends on the symmetry about knowing the difference between real and fake medical condition that is problematic is always entails on the proper target medical intervention. The disorder bodies is distinct from the problematic. Should treat the disorders that are identical, not are the ones that are context dependent. It is held some normal form of function. There's no value for written and directly visible language in the behaviors of that are rarely that are or aren't disorder. It means whether or not to intervene fails to value to later interpretation of the issue. We can't rely on the hope for value-free guidance. The discursive other it doesn't cause violence, verbal it doesn't. But if the United States is continuously to reproduce identities, that helps us to explain, helps us to understand why one results otherwise turned out differently at another time. How we would explain how the process resulted in Iraq, but didn't produce a similar vision of Afghanistan in 1979 with them. The West was learned by the evil empire. How do we explain the language of war on term resulted in fitness and invasion? It's possible to explain how the Bush was able to convince people to support a war without reference to a single fact outside the discourse of that terror submitted to the murder of thousands and to othering is what gave the United States the opportunity to pursue war. Why Afghanistan? Why not North Korea or Scotland? Why would it not happen anywhere else more often? Why would the British government not have been able to summon an invasion in the north? They're not going through the violence of the 1980s.
So first of all, can you explain to me why on your second convention, like the debt, like the spiral down hasn't already happened if we're already past the tipping point?
We're not passing the tipping point. Our argument is that there's a confluence of factors that are happening now that's making it so that now is the critical time. And there's two different factors that sort of exist now. One is the rise of challengers. We read evidence that says that Russia and China recently signed a venture deal that has caused an influx of yuan, which is China's currency, into the market. And that has caused other countries to begin to question the United States dollar hegemony. And something else that has caused the United States dollar hegemony to be questioned is the fact that our debt is currently reaching a critical threshold. We read evidence that says that if Medicare spending increases in the near future, then which is projected to be because of the baby boomers and the sickening population, whatever, then the government will be unable to keep up with those.
Okay,
So where do you stand on condo?
It's bad.
Condo's bad? Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain to me this like Rodwell 5 card that you read in the head? Like where
Sure.
this functions in the debate?
Yeah, I think it's an impact defense argument. That's like, even if you otherize other people, that stuff doesn't escalate, right? So you read an impact that's like, discursive othering causes war. If we like otherize disabled people, then it gives us an excuse to invade other countries. And we read evidence that says that, and that in fact is not correct because, for example, we would have already invaded a country like North Korea, Scotland, Britain would have invaded Northern Ireland in the 80s is what our evidence says, because like they still use discursive othering and use that rhetoric, but the culmination of that rhetoric was not like violence, if that makes sense. That's what the evidence is saying.
And how does the act do anything to go against like this otherization? Like
So one thing is that if you are correct that this otherization exists in the SQO, then that means that your links are more true to SQO, and the alternative has to solve that. So the unique combination of the unique combination of the act and the alternative would certainly resolve all those links. But our argument is that it's not good to look at things in terms of like diagnosis and to totally throw the idea of diagnosis and like saying people are sick out of the bathwater. And that's the first piece of evidence we read. And the argument for that is that diagnosis can sometimes be helpful because, for example, like a student who has like ADHD might struggle in school compared to other students, but because he can be diagnosed, he can receive the necessary care that he needs so that he can compete with other students. And like, we think that's like a good thing. If that makes sense. Like that's an example of
Okay. And then you talk about mental health, and that like this makes it so that we're sidelining mental health. What about like the mental health of people who have lost their bodily autonomy due to this medicalization?
Sorry, your question.
Your parents' 11 card. Like you're talking about like how we're sidelining mental health, right? Like that's within your tag.
Yeah.
So how do you make it so that we don't end up sidelining?
Taking part. How much time do we have left?
We have 9:28.
Yeah.
So you don't know the live stream is down because we can't get internet, so we're just going to post them tonight. We're just going to record them.
Okay.
But we'll still, yeah.
I'm gonna explain condo. So all you need to do is do the firms and all the other stuff. So it's multiplayer, it's more basic without all the stuff. So they essentially the exact same. But they link to it because they're literally all good. Can I ask all a question?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if the judge has to vote for two bad worlds? No, I'm saying like, what if the app is a bad idea and the advocacy is presenting on the negative bad ideas? How does he choose?
On presumption because you forward.
So then we win.
No,
No.
app on presumption.
Why app
Because
on
you forwarded an advocacy.
So why does it flip over?
Presumption flips app when you kind of apply the right thing.
Where do you say that?
That's
What's
like
your-
because you propose a different policy, so now it's the burden of proof for you to prove why it's better than the other. The indefinite, et cetera. And then you have the judge to vote on presumption because which one here?
I think for the
I
moment.
think it's for the
6:14.
I'm gonna go to the restroom, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that'll give me time to send it out.
Okay.
Make sure I send out the right one.
Round one, right version?
Does it say round one right version?
Yeah, because she originally resent the original email
Okay.
because somebody was left off of it.
Oh, sorry, I was, let's see, starts with stability. To the agenda. It's asking for my permission.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start on the 1 and see and do the,
Wait for them.
yeah, okay, yeah. Standing.
It's a little chilly in here.
Yeah, it is, right? But like, when you start talking, it's like, I need to take off my
Yeah,
jacket.
that always happens.
Your pen was standing, how was it doing that? You
This
wizard.
part of my computer is oddly magnetic. I don't know why, like this like tiny little section.
Yeah, it's to keep the thing closed.
But it doesn't happen on both sides until it's very odd. Because like
So-
the rest of my computer.
There might not be a magnet on the other side because of the hard drive or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you might only need one magnet. I mean, if it stays closed with just the one, and they could get away with only putting one, they
I
probably
feel
saved,
that
you
my
know.
timer sticks to it.
Yeah.
Which can be obnoxious.
So just, I'm gonna start on the 1NC document to get to the impact and alt,
You send it.
and then I'm gonna go on to the 2NC doc. And then, on top of all that is gonna be the bees to set.
All right.
So bees to set, then 1NC doc, and 2NC doc. We good?
These 1 and C, 2 and C.
Yep.
And when you say 2 and C, that's a new piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's the perm stuff, I don't know how you wanna flow the perm stuff, but I flow perm on a separate seat sheet.
Okay, so hang on.
Okay.
So B's, and then by 1 and C, you mean what?
I mean the
Case?
ability K and the framework.
Okay, so like,
So the BSD and the mechanic.
BSD and K. Thank you.
so not case.
Not case.
Okay, and
Counter.
not counterpoint.
Not counter.
Okay, I think I. All right, just be clear.
Awesome. Sorry.
That's fine.
Fairly confusing person for my mind. It's different places sometimes. Okay, are we all good? Okay. First of all, BSD extend the no link, there's no offense consequence means that we're not going to be losing on it. On to the 1NC document. Under the form of biopolitics, scripts are dehumanized and sent to zones of living dead, Jordan 13. This threshold of modernity is considered in the politicization of unqualified body once. The animal abhorrence of a government zoo is linked to this disabled body. The disability becomes stigmatized in the West as a symbol of this strictly biological need of the human body. Conclusion might follow that if the problem of modern biopolitics is developed
primarily in the biological process of the subject, disability would find a measure of inclusion in the new paradigm of rule. These are dangers associated with the line of thought which correspond to the type of progress or narrative associated with disability liberation. Even if the old walls of the institution begin to crumble, the group homes, the nursing home, the special education classroom, and the government funded facility continue to mark a point of separation between the able-bodied and the disabled. But MA offers the concept of death world to describe new and unique forms of social existence, which forms the vast populations are subject to conditions of life conferring upon them the status of living dead. Given that there are more than 500 million disabled people in the world today, and that 80% of the live in developed countries, the intersections between impaired bodies and the creation of death worlds are multifarious. The visible fragmented body makes the liminal position between life and death, while the social conditions upon living dead produce disproportionate numbers of disabled people. Their disabilities perform the symbolic work of justifying those unequal living conditions. The death world relies on form of circular logic that inverts the temporal manifestation, where acts of violence are justified by disabilities they produce. The simultaneous inclusion and exclusion of disabled body characters, modernity, and the current age of global capital endorse, and the alt endorse universal woundedness, decentering the ontology of health as an oppressive construct in favor of intrinsic woundedness in all bodies and events, knowing that we are disabled in some form of delegitimize the ableist oppressions as we are all oppressed by sociocultural norms. Shang in 27. The proposals that we think of universal woundedness, implying that we work to decenter the ontology of health. This is not to think that all life tends to fall into illness or error. It is falling away from health that would involve naturalizing a relationship between health and illness that reinforces the centrality of health. It is the place error per se, primarily not error or illness articulated in any specific way, but rather non-articulated error that is alternating what is universalized is disunity, disintegration, integration, perhaps better termed omniversal, multiversal, although still better still, such terms emerge under erasure, universalizing, not denaturing, but denaturing. This is to engage the notion of nature itself. The casting of woundedness is primarily emphasizing the alterity in and of the world of woundedness in and of alterity. Neither term determining the other prior to any ontology or subject, world, and performances is woundedness of trauma before wounding or event before origin. Nature emerges wounded. Woundedness succeeds from and precedes emergence of signification as well as the emergence of health and ability. Cut the card there. This means that on there, all their articulation about epistemology and how we have to consider the act before we consider questions of epistemology shouldn't be warranted at all, because it's a question of ontology. They could have asked us in cross-sex if this was ontology or an epistemology, but this was already in the doc here. They could have seen it no matter what, so it doesn't matter. On to the 2NC doc now, onto the debility framework part. Okay. The role of journalism over the team that exposes invisible violence, structural violence, locks and social tendencies, and culminates in extinction and makes war inevitable. Suspense 08. Human societies can survive only by lasting real peace. Arms and race, militarism have escalated. Many invisible wars have suffered by the poor and manifested in mass misery, poverty, unemployment, homelessness, starvation, epidemics, and poor health conditions, exploitations, oppression, racial discrimination, organized injustice, and in the degradation of human environment. The war against nature and large-scale pollution of our environments. Behind invisible wars, we find striking international inter-society inequalities of destructive environment development patterns, which degenerate social as well as international tensions, paving the way for unrest and visible wars. The prerequisites of lasting peace involve not only demilitarism but also an elimination of the roots of violence and the cause of invisible wars and the structural and institutional basis of exploitation and oppression. Peace requires a process of emancipation. Peace cannot be safeguarded in one of the world when some others suffer visible or invisible wars. No ecological balance can be ensured unless a deep international development and gap inter-society inequalities are substantially reduced. The question is not about sustainability of development, but about the sustainability of human life, i.e. the survival of mankind. We live in an almost permanent crisis. The narrow-minded election-oriented selfish behavior motivated by your thirst for power and wealth paves the way for final lasting mastery. Under the circumstances provided rapidly progressing science technological revolutions, human society cannot survive unless such profound inter-society international inequalities prevailing today are soon eliminated. Earth can no longer afford to have on the one hand the poor and the depraved on the other. This means that we're going to be turning all of their advantage, because we are saying that war is ultimately going to be inevitable when you don't look at the underlying invisible wars that is going on, i.e. the invisible wars against people with disabilities. Slow violence is invisible and exponential. Nixon 11. We urgently need to rethink slow violence. Violence that is dispersed across time. Violence is customarily conceived as an event or an action that is immediate and out of time, explosive and spectacular. We need to engage violence that is neither spectacular nor instantaneous, but rather incremental and accretive. We need to engage the invisibility of slow violence. Had Summers advocated invading Africa with weapons of mass destruction, his proposal would have fallen under conventional definitions. Violence had been perceived as an imperial invasion. Advocating invading countries with mass forms of slow motion toxicity, however, requires rethinking our accepted assumptions of violence to include slow violence. Such a rethinking requires that we complicate conventional assumptions about violence. Cut the card there. This means that we are ultimately going to be outweighing, even if you grant them the framework, it means that we're ultimately going to be outweighing the consequentialist framework, which means you're going to be preferring the neg in this case. On to the framework proper. On to the framework. The all still works under their framework on the on their framework page. We didn't need to read any framework to move the 1AC, we simply are weighing net benefits. That's our Sesentes evidence. They try to warn us single-payer education, but critical education debate is also good policy. Specifically, it's good to go into depth, or policy debate is specifically good to go into depth on issues relating to health, specifically because of the healthcare topic. The resolution is uniquely good because this is asked for the question of health. We are a form of education here because we open the door to what health is okay to be actually talked about. They don't even want to talk about disability in their 1AC when they have the perfect opportunity to do it, which means we're going to be ahead on the question of education, which means we're going to be talking about the education received from our wounded assaults. Onto the condo framework. The net gets 2 conditional advocacies to test the affirmative. This is the best for debate. Voting on unconditional rule makes the judge have to vote for morally bad teams. When you look and you're specifically excluding disabled bodies, and I'm going to be proving why the act is specifically excluding disabled bodies on the links. It means that you're going to be having to vote for specifically bad worlds that allow, like, it puts the judge in a morally objectionable position where you have to choose between 2 bad worlds. They're going to come up here and say, oh, there's some thing of rejoint, but they didn't explain this in any of their speeches, so it's not going to matter. They should have brought it up when they were talking about their conditional framework in the first place, which means we're not going to have the same responses that they're going to be able to have on this, on the specific links. Okay. First on the hegemony link. The defensive hegemony accelerates the spread of globalized by a political machine that enables Western knowledge to impose an able normative version of the self across globes of powerless nationalism and localism demolished. Goodly in 11. Critical disabilities are aware of the inequality of globalization. Empire provides a means of bringing together analysis of globalization, economic connection, late capitalism, rapid development, communication, the impact of biopower on global citizen knowledge from the global north. It spreads across the globe in ways that are imposed, taken up, or resisted by citizens in their local contexts. It's subjected to big modern ideas such as choice, competition, capitalism, mediocrity, science, and medicine, and also holding to more local concerns. Powerful notions. Nations have the potential to demolish powerless nations and local concerns. At the heart of the empire is the Foucauldian notion of biopower. Discourse of biopower are reproduced in the institutional regimes of power, school of healthcare and welfare, setting prison and workplace. These discourses are used to create psychologies, our sense of the self and others, our subjectivities. Through globalization, the rapid expansion of the capitalist free market could be argued that all global citizens are more likely to come into contact with biopower. Empire refers to globalized biopolitical machine through which theories of subjectivity spread across the globe, affecting citizens that order the world. The process of biopower, having a mind perfectly psychology, version of the self, healthy, rational, autonomous, educated, economically valuable, self-governing, able as a self-contained individual, and you don't fit the empire is ready to fix you. Non-governmental organizations provide international aid in the development of nation states in the majority of the world, addressing such issues as poverty, literacy, and disability. This means that they're articulated things about how biopower is too like a broader concept. It means by a specific application of biopower to their entrenching of hegemony. It means that we're focusing down the concept of biopower, which means that this means that they're specifically linking through the aspect of hegemony. Furthermore, onto the skip the serial policy failure. Onto the normality. Their concept of posing a normality of what a normal human body is through their notion of trying to fix the opioids epidemic and fix people and trying to heal people is a specific link that we're going to need on disability to win this round. The construction of normal as natural rationalizes subordination of people with disabilities as a scientific act. Starting in 11. Normalization, the rhetorical form of that obscures as natural law the ideological preference for things normal. This warrant justifies ableist discrimination, providing rationale for supporting disabled people. It works by deploying the idea of the normal body as a fact of nature, thereby absolving the responsibility for employing it in the medical, scientific, political, and religious institution, valuing normal bodies and devaluing abnormal bodies, reflecting sensible awareness of the way things actually work instead of deploying questionable ideology. Normality thus becomes an inherent and relatively questionable characteristic appearing against the framework of grounded scientific certainty, historically society that claims discriminatory substance and scientific act at the heart there. This directly links to the impact of erasure of disabled people, which means that we're not going to, or this is going to be the largest impact of the round because it's exponential violence. On to the dissets of the perm masking. The permutation is a tool used to hide the ableist conception of cognition. The disabled person body is ontologically negative because it's perceived as unproductive. The alternative is independently keyed. Campbell, in 293, the disabled body is a site of struggle against discrimination corresponding to say social meaning. Disability within an ableist polity should be understood as a state of ambivalence. This ambivalence relates to a perennial uncertainty and oscillation between the degree of investment one has to have in normalcy and daily business of negotiating alterity. The disabled body is constantly sidelined as an axis of subordination and reduced in some way to a sense of minoritization, protected class amenable to enumerative cooperation. Cut the card there. Cut the card at mapping.
You're good.
Good.
Ready again?
Yep.
Okay. So starting off on the hedge link, the line agreements, like Goodly evidence, it says citizens are subjected to big modern ideas such as choice, competition, capitalism, meritocracy, science, and medicine. And it later goes on to say that all of those things are sort of tied to Western hegemony. So is the alternative a rejection of choice, competition, capitalism, meritocracy, science, and medicine?
No, it's an acceptance of woundedness, so it's like a method of saying that we are not these specific things that...
You've identified these things as being a contributor to overall discursive violence. So does the alternative reject science, medicine, capitalism, competition, and choice?
No, not at all.
How? You've said those things are bad. How do those things exist in the world?
Just because the alternative doesn't solve for the completeness of the link doesn't mean that the link is gonna go away.
Exactly. So then why is the contribution of the affirmative at all negligible in the face of the alternative, which is so huge? Like, why does the inclusion of the app suddenly mean that the alternative won't work, right? Because you've said that some form of like biopolitical control exists, right? Science, competition, choice, these are all biopolitical control. You said the alternative doesn't solve those, and those all seem to be much bigger structuring things that cause biopolitical violence in the app. So why is the inclusion of the app and the alternative suddenly like incompatible? If that makes sense. That was a little question.
I don't understand your question, like the incompatibility.
Okay, so I've identified like 4 pretty big things that the alternative does not solve. You've read evidence that says that things like capitalism, science, etc. all contribute to biopolitics. The alternative does not do anything to get rid of those things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are all instances of biopolitical violence. So why don't those, one, get rid of the alternative? And if they don't mess up the alternative, why does the inclusion of the act?
Okay. So the alternative framing, i.e. centering rootedness in the ontology of the disabled person, allows us to like cope in a world where these are happening. So it's not just a question of like fixing the problems, it's a question of first like recentering the way that we view disability, i.e. through rootedness.
Okay, and then what's wrong with giving them care afterwards? Like just giving them healthcare?
So it's like the notion of giving them care is like, first of all, hella saviorist, because you don't just like say, hey, you're gonna be fixed if I give you something. It's the idea that you need to be fixed in the first place.
Okay,
so your opioid thing, when I asked you cross-ex, where you were saying, oh, we're gonna make these people like healthy again, we're gonna make them all good again. It's not the point of like fixing them, it's the point of you're saying, we're going to fix you because you need to be fixed in the first place.
The alternative, HEAD is the alternative solve rising healthcare costs and government debt?
It doesn't need to. The counterpart does, she'll talk about it.
Okay, and so is care good? Should people receive care, healthcare?
If they want it, if they embrace their own woundedness and recognize that they don't want that woundedness.
So why can't you embrace woundedness and then give insurance to people afterwards?
Okay, so the way that you're specific, you can do it first of all, but the way that you've done the terms.
Does the alternative do that?
Does the alternative?
Yeah, we'll take credit for that. Does the alternative include any part of the app?
No.
Okay. So
30 seconds.
Just write that down. 6:14. 6:14.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
The counterpart.
Stop and prep. 5:37 left. There is one card I'm reading. I'm sending it out in an email. It's already at the bottom of the one in CEDA. I just wanted to give it to y'all and
Better than my jumping around.
okay. So the order is going to be the counter plan with the desires within it, and then on to case in order of case. So opioids and then the other stuff.
People do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, the counterplan goes to the judge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And this card goes on page.
Okay.
Okay. Go for it. Okay, so first of all, on the counter plan, they say that the counter plan doesn't solve, but the counter plan does solve. It does all the things that the app does, but instead of doing it through insurance, we're doing it through subsidies. The counter plan can solve the app even if the alt can't, and doing so without insurance is what makes it so it works better with the alt, and so that we're starting to reverse this medicalization and move forward and embrace what's the word? Woundedness. Sorry. Second of all, they link into this disad because they're literally a form of insurance. They're ignoring the reason why this disad is here. The reason why we want to do the counterclaim is to avoid doing insurance. So you can't actually prove this. You can't say, oh, let's do insurance but not do insurance. Like the counterclaim is literally, let's not do insurance, and that's why we want the counterclaim. The net benefit to this counterclaim is that we don't have the disad of the insurance. Furthermore, they talked about the Fourth Amendment checks in the NLIC 17 card. Within the card it says, your patients may be more vulnerable to immigration enforcement actions when they are in areas of your facility that are open to the public, which means that this still links in. There's still going to be an increase in deportations. It's still going to happen because the thing is there's lots of areas in the clinic that are open to the public. The only areas that aren't open to the public is when you go back and actually like receive the treatment. But the thing is that the deportations happen before that even occurs. The deportations happen when you go up to the counter and they ask you, hey, can you show proof of ID? Hey, can we like see what's going on with you? Hey, let's check who you are within this country. Instead of just saying, hey, you need care, you're dying, you need care, let's help you get the care that you want and that you need. So like if you're paying, they can deport you. If you're parking, they can deport you. If you're just literally waiting in the front center, which we know everybody ends up going to the doctor and you wait for a little bit before they call you back, they can deport you. And so this impact still occurs. Third of all, on all these multi-payer fails cards, like we're not multi-payer. Multi-payer is a form of insurance. We're subsidizing. And even further so, the subsidies come from the USFG, so it's a single person that's subsidizing, a single actor that's subsidizing. So even if you believe that like it's that the multi part isn't true, and also the multi-payer insurance part isn't true. So none of these cards apply to us. Yeah. On to case. First of all, on the opioids epidemic, they didn't answer my question about like the Coleman 17 card says that it's literally happening at light speed. All this cartel stuff is happening at light speed. If it's happening at light speed, then it should have either A, already happened, or it's going to happen anyway. There's no way that you can solve for opioids fast enough that all of a sudden their market completely collapses. Furthermore, when we look at drug cartels, they're going to be able to get funding from more than just one specific drug. And they're going to try to push the drugs into the market, even if you see that there's some small decline due to their plan. On to the second contention. On the nationalism chart, their answer to this was that, oh, we want to like utilize the energy of the plenty of people looking to get involved in politics. Like that's literally quoting from their speech. But the thing is that if you're utilizing the energy of the people that want to get involved in politics, if you look at the people who are trying to get involved in politics right now, there's a lot of white nationalism groups. There's a lot of groups that are going towards in this direction. So it's not just going to be like, oh, the people who like can't do it right now because they're like literally excluded from our politics. It's the people who are already in politics that are going to do this. So extend that. Also extend the Britain example of what happens there, and cross-apply the K analysis on the CALS 16. The thing that happens here is that my partner already kind of stated. Just cross-apply those arguments. And extend the Dresden 14 card I read that econ decline does not result in conflict that the recession proves. They never like refuted that the recession proves that this actually impact isn't going to happen. Like we've seen econ decline like this before, and so if the hegemony has declined before, if we've seen the decrease of the dollar before, then it hasn't solved it hasn't ended in this giant conflict. It hasn't ended in nuclear war. It hasn't ended in these transition wars. We thought all those things were going to happen, and they didn't. And it was a very similar scenario. And so if those things didn't happen then, there's no reason to believe that they're going to just suddenly happen today. And then on to the new card, impacts don't go global. Other countries are resilient without the US. Archer Simpson Robinson 5/1917. A synchronized expansion means the global economy doesn't need to rely as much on the US for growth. That limits the emergence of the imbalances that could destabilize global growth, such as an abrupt change in the US dollar that leaves emerging markets vulnerable. And global economies have really been so insane. The variation of growth rates this year in Group 20 economies will be the lowest since at least 1980, according to Bloomberg calculations and IMF data. In fact, no G20 economy is expected to post a decline in output this year, which would be the first time since 2010. Growth rate differences are diminishing even as the global expansion accelerates, with G20 growth is forecast to average 2.4% in 2017 from 1.8% last year. It's the same trend, more synchronization of the faster rate for inflation rates as well. So we see that like even if there is some impact that happens, it's not going to go global. It's only going to affect the U.S. and it's only going to cause a U.S. recession, which is far less worse than this giant like transition wars impact that they're trying to put out. They don't even have this other impact in there. So you can only garner them. That one impact is just going to occur.
Let me get that up real quick and then I'll tell you when I start. Okay, cool. Just put these cards in a document. Oh yeah, they are. The opioids advantage, then the debt advantage, the counter plan with
the entrance to CEDA on the bottom, kind of, then the disability critique.
This framework gonna be on top of disability?
Yeah.
I just flipped that on like a different page and I.
Yeah. Yep. That should be right at the top.
All right, can you say that again?
Yep. The opioids advantage, the debt advantage, the counter plan with the insurance stuff, and then the disability critique.
All right, so what about, so he had like I had a separate paper for the 2 and C.
Yeah,
mortgage
that's like
outflow.
the framework stuff. That'll be at the top of the critique.
Got it, okay, I can handle that.
And then the alt card that they read, I'll just signpost when I'm talking about that, if that's okay.
That's perfect.
Okay, cool. Is everybody good to go?
Sorry, you sent something out? Okay. Good to go.
Cool. The assaults, the opioid crisis versus profits, and second is alternative treatments, and third it solves for overconsumption. Chapman and McLean, the solar and Sailor piece of evidence, opioid crisis causes nuclear terrorism and funds activities and drug conflicts. Even a small attack causes Trump to lash out. That's a Coleman piece of evidence. They don't have any impact defense, which means you should prioritize it over the impacts. The critique on the and on the dissent, they say that they will get funding from other places. No, the one AC piece of evidence, the one AC piece of internal link evidence says that opioids are the largest funding sources for constructing this narco submarines. They say that it increases the amount of white nationalism. There's no link to this because Sanders and Warren have already attached themselves to it. Therefore, there's not going to be an increase in the amount of white nationalism. But also, it's not unique. There's already been an increase because of Trump. The plan does not make a dent in that. The second advantage is the debt dollar primacy is on the brink of collapse due to rising healthcare costs. Primacy is key to hegemony, sells escalatory hotspots in rising China and Russia. That's our 20 and 17 piece of evidence. Their only argument against this is that the Dresner piece of evidence. This does not apply. This is not our impact. This is about the economy, but not dollar hegemony. The two are not the same. They don't have any evidence, and the Cal piece of evidence from the 1AC proves that there's a distinction that dollar hegemony is key to being able to fund for like military operations. The counterplan? That on the counterplan? They don't solve for the insurance. They said they subsidize care, which means that they give more power to the insurance agencies. Their 1 and C piece of evidence is that, which means that the counterplan does not solve for the only net benefit that they are reading. The plan solves for the dissent. It constrains the power of private companies and private insurers by making it so that the government regulates the amount regulates the amount of insurances and is the sole provider of insurance, which is what the advantage is based off of. The counterplan doesn't solve for the impacts of the affirmative. They don't decrease the amount of government spending on healthcare because they just subsidize it, which means that it actually increases the amount of government spending on healthcare, but also they don't solve for the opioid crisis because they do not constrain the private insurers, and they make it so that the private insurers have more power than the government does. It links to the critique because it still provides access to healthcare clinics. Therefore, it doesn't. Therefore, the alternative therefore does not solve for the impact to the criticism. The deportations impacts the affirmative does not link to this. Immigration enforcement is limited by the Fourth Amendment, which means that the patients do not have to disclose patient information. That's our NILC, a piece of evidence from the 2AC that they have conceded, which means that we don't link to this. Private insurance isn't in charge. It's worse than the government being in charge. Multi-payer systems don't solve because it still causes the debt to rise. It doesn't even mean equal access for everyone. It means that we cannot solve for the opioid epidemic. The second, but also the government should be the one that sets out guidelines, or else the industry medicalization term runs rampant. Continuo. In 2016, the guidelines have been proved to be an effective tool to raise awareness rather than to promote consistency, to provide an indication to the professionals, the patients, and population to regulate medicalization directed and generated by the health need. Therefore, in order for the private insurance to focus on the generating profits and the profit drives the services, the insurance and medicalization, and provide the ultimate frontier for companies speculation on how to create factuous medicalization based on the pseudocultural constructions that are likely to generate social discrimination, which also means that they don't solve the impact. Now, extend permutation do both. It does not link to the impact because it shields the link to it because it makes it so that the government is in charge, and therefore the private insurance companies are no longer in charge. The critique? The framework is that you should vote affirmative if single payer and the effects of it are a good idea. the rule about is self-serving. Our interpretation is best because you can still criticize problems with health insurance as long as they are specific to the affirmative. Any rule developed that does compete to the affirmative advocacy is arbitrary and self-serving. First, it moves the app. The negative will self-serve and choose and impact the one. C didn't read 2 is predictability, skirts any detention of the topic education, and 4 C is realistic education. Speech Act theory alone ignores how systems of power respond to their speech act, only questioning its applications. The broader institutions provide a check on utopian alternatives, also reciprocity. If they can link to the plan, then we should be able to leverage the plan versus the alternative, but also the only the plan solves for structural violence under Trump Klein in 2017. However, destabilizing things are that the Trump doctrine means that they can get a lot worse. The main pillars of Trump's project are the deconstruction, the regulatory state, the full-blown attack on wealth abolition, is the fossil fuel frenzy, civilizational war against immigrants, and terrorism with ever-expanding domestic foreign threats. Cut the card at threats, but also the impacts to the affirmative turn outweigh the impacts to the criticism. Nuclear war in times of crisis will cause Trump and the governmental actors to crack down again and increase the fascist-based policies, makes the violence against people worse, and causes further authorization. Prioritizing consequences that are solved by the app should be preferred, but also the plan solves the impact to the criticism. We constrain the private providers and the experimentation, which is the largest cause of bad and unregulated medical care practices. They'll link to but also the war turns any root cause Goldstein into the one in many assumptions of the injustice and cause where the evidence runs up the other way. War is not the product of any single cause fueled by the sustained injustice, and the emphasis of the injustice as the cause of the worst things empirically inadequate. The link to be the hegemony link pursuit is the ability to makes it effective. Brains of 2017 alliances are deeply institutionalized and difficult to unwind. There is all a little sympathy within the GOP. The Congress became the grant with the blended nationalism, the decommitment of the business community are deeply dependent and willing to use political clout. Cut the card, the permutation debate. The permutation to both cross-examination and the 2&C proves that healthcare clinics exist in the world of the alternative plan. It's just a financing mechanism for those newly regulated clinics. We can both have the epistemology of the alternative, but also have free access to care under their interpretation of that. Yeah, the alternative does not solve for rising healthcare costs, therefore they don't solve for the impacts of the affirmative. Being against care is bad. A dissent to the alternative. Diagnosis of illness doesn't always mean that we end up trying to fix people. Instead, it gives people access to clinics that would be able to help them in their times of need. That was
Cards you
Shakespeare.
were reading at the top.
I sent them. The only card that I didn't send that I'll send now in the marked version is this Klein card.
Okay, cool. That's honest.
Yeah, sorry. I just didn't put it in that document.
actually a disability K, and I'm not reviewing the disability K. I might like talk about everything else, but I won't review it next week.
Okay.
Just the disability.
Overview disabilities. Okay.
You sending anything out?
Nope.
Good.
I love those things.
Oh my god. Everyone gets like so concerned because they're like, oh, I want a cookie, but then I keep my pens in it.
Oh, that was kind of a bummer. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's like going to like your grandma's house and
Yeah.
find a sewing kit.
Oh my gosh. Every time it gets me.
Yep.
It's like I know I'm gonna be disappointed. But this originally did have the things in it. I got it for like 99 cents at the 99-cent store.
Yeah.
And then
I get them at the Dollar Tree.
Nice. The Dollar Tree is like the most fantastic, magical place ever.
It's great, especially when you're in college.
Oh my god, right? Why do things have to be expensive? Just why?
Capitalism, I guess.
Yes. Can you please not tell me there's things it is?
One of my favorite things is like to just be like, okay, I'm just gonna spend $2 at the dollar store and whatever I want.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that is-
treat myself today.
That is nice.
You get one of the like compressed little towels that like you put in the water.
Yep.
It's freaking me out. Like
It's like
gross
super
so
cool.
much. This is y'all's first year doing CEDA.
Zach went last year.
Okay.
I didn't.
Cool.
So.
'Cause, like, this is
technically
our-
that's for me.
Cool. This is our first one too.
Okay.
It's like, hey, we're here.
That's nice.
Yeah. It is. It is fun to be.
How long did it take you all to get here?
We flew, so like 2 hours.
Oh, nice. Not bad.
But like we live in Hong Kong. So.
Yeah.
Everyone ready?
Yep.
So overview of disability. We are winning the K debate. We have isolated specific links, the normalization of the human body. Here, they act as an independent dissets to their opioids advantage. The impact to this is the extermination or erasure of difference relating to folks with disabilities. They have completely dropped the Cherney 11 card, which means even if you don't have the hedge link, we have a unique disadvantage to their methodology, or to their specific opioids advantage, not the methodology. They link to this normalization link dissat, or link impact. The moment in cross-sex where they conceded to fix what is the to fix the opioids epidemic through the normalization of people and like getting them better, that is the moment that they propagated and erased the disability that's the disability. Yeah, where they erase this. Don't let them come up and recharacterize like their 1AC by saying it's just a funding mechanism. By isolating that specific moment of fixing the opioids epidemic is what is going to be causing the our impact. Furthermore, even on this, on the framework of this K, they have constantly said that they want to weigh the app against the K. Let's do that now. On the Nixon 11 card, we said that slow violence is invisible and exponential, which means we will always be outweighing on questions of magnitude, which means that you're going to be preferring the K in questions of magnitude, which means that they can still weigh their app against our K. We do not try to frame our app with this framework. We only read the framework as a response to them. We have not tried to, as a response to their saying we are, yeah. So we're going to be weighing the app against the K, and we're still going to be outweighing on the K because our erasure of disabled folks will always outweigh. It outweighs because flashpoint impacts like nuclear war only affect the amount of people that are like living on Earth at that time. So even if you kill all 7 billion of us, it's still going to be only 7 billion people. But if you allow the people to keep on living and you violently and constantly exterminate them and erase them, it means that it's not just going to be 7 billion people. It's going to be an ongoing and recurring event. At the point where they cannot solve for this link impact, it means that they're not going to be able to solve for this. They are going to try and come up and say, oh, this perm solves for this link and impact, but the perm is not going to be able to solve for this because part of their impact, or part of the perm, is they're still isolating, trying to fix the opioids epidemic. They would have to completely kick the opioids advantage in order to get this, but they'd have to collapse it because it would be a good idea too, because hedge is just going to be bad all over. Okay, I'll get to that later. Okay.
anything else on this one? Okay. So, on to the counter plan. Extend the perm. The perm is just a test of competition. It means that there's not going to be an independent net benefit for voting on the counter plan. For voting app on the counter plan. They have dropped the conditionality arguments, which means that we can kick it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And even if you were going to be, even if they collapse onto the counter plan, within the app's own Milk 17 card, the deportation risk is proven. They have no answer to parking lots, check-in areas, or waiting areas. This is the unique reason to vote down the app, because by attempting to solve through their insurance, they force the people who have the least access in this vote, not only from clinics but also from the country. Okay, on to the case. They're not going to be okay. On to the opioids advantage. We've proven a specific link impact scenario that is going to be outweighing on time frame or on magnitude and probability. We are winning on magnitude because of the Nixon evidence that I've already talked about. We are going to be winning on probability because literally they're perpetuating ableism in this room. That's erasing the difference and erasing the disabled folks from their the way that they're constituting their app. Furthermore, on the hegemony link or hegemony, okay. Where is my flow for hegemony? Ah, cool. Yeah, that's it. Okay. They have said that escalating. They've conceded our no solvency on this argument. They say that a dollar hedge and hard power are specifically different, but this doesn't take into account the. They have dropped the economic. Is that the one you said? Okay. They have dropped that economic areas don't affect other countries, which means, economic impacts don't go global, which is a specific demarcation of their dollar sign, which means even if you they go here, they ultimately have terminal insolvency because they actually don't have a nuclear war coming from economic advantage. Furthermore, they're yeah. So the impact of an economic depression don't go global. That is our Gittis and Robinson 17 card. They have completely missed the articulation here, which means that they have no route to their impact, which means that you're not going to be voting here or looking for their impacts at all because there's like a no link, no solvency thing. Cool. Am I saying the same thing over and over again? Probably, but cool. Okay. So okay. So at the end of the day, you have two things to vote for. You can vote for the K and rejecting ableism and erasure of disabled folks at every turn, or you can no, hold on, I mischaracterized that. You can vote on the link impact disad that is happening within our K, specifically the normalization that's leading to discrimination difference. This is going to be the biggest impact in the round because the Nixon card. It is going to be the most probable in this round because that it's literally happening right now. Erasure is happening and they're perpetuating it through their use of the opioid solvency. Furthermore, it is going to be the most time frame because it's literally like it's happening right now. As soon as it happens, you vote. Even if they are going to be, they're going to be trying to go for probability because we didn't contest their probability claims in the opioids thing. We are the most probable because it's literally happening now. There's still going to be a question of magnitude, which means this debate is going to come down to a question of magnitude, which the neg will go that way. Cool. So we don't have to solve our own impacts through our alt. We only have to prove that the neg is doing bad stuff, and they are through the isolated links and impacts.
Okay, for what's this? Okay.
Thank you for telling me so I didn't have to search through my stuff. Let me get my okay, start.
Yeah.
sorry, what?
For that streaming sheet that we had to sign the disclosure for, is that just for this round or just for the tournament?
I believe we're doing it by round. We're trying to get as many different teams as possible. There's probably not sort of overlapping until like later in the tournament.
How many cameras did y'all have to buy for like to record all the rounds?
3. We bought 3. We're looking at getting a 4th because we figured out if we bought a 4th, we could ostensibly record at least every team once. So right now we're only like 500 now. So.
I really drip that ring down. It's so calming.
Okay, hedge, opioids, okay. Everybody good?
Here's what your ballot should look like. The 2NR has no explanation for how they solve any of the affirmatives impacts or any of their link arguments, so you can be certain that the alternative results in total planetary extinction because hegemonic decline happens, opioid crisis leads to nuclear terrorism, which causes retaliation. All of these things are absolutely certain in the world of the alternative because they fail to play any impact defense, but you can be certain that none of those things happen in the world of the affirmative because they have no direct links that tie any of the impacts they're going to a single payer affirmative. So it's a pretty easy decision, but hegemonic decline causes nuclear war, spiraling debt destroys dollar primacy, which causes nuclear war. The United States withdrawing from the international order causes rivaling nations to compete for regional status and causes allied proliferation, all which causes miscalculation, extinction. There's 2 distinct impact scenarios. The bloc failed to neglect impact defense to either one of them. The gold standard for these impact debates should be hotspots. They can be absolutely correct that hegemony in the abstract is bad and that promotes bad epistemology, but what is the impact of that argument? You can be certain that hegemony solves